Hi class, it's Andrea. This week's lecture is on voice quality. If you are following along in the textbook, we're starting on page 293. And this should be the fourth online lecture. Let's get started. So, our voice quality is the best way to indicate a person's emotional or physical state. So if someone is happy, angry, sad, tired, tense, it's easily heard through their voice quality. Before we really get into the reason why, first we need to talk about how our voice is produced and how sound is produced. It's produced by a series of puffs of air that's made that happens between your vocal folds in your larynx. And this is also in the region called the glottis, the area between the vocal folds. So air puffs through, and then it makes sounds, and these sounds are bounced around in hollow cavities in your neck and head. Another term for having them bouncing around is resonate, right? So they're resonating. Resonance, or the bouncing, makes the sound louder. It also changes the sound's tone based on the size and shape of the cavities that it's bouncing inside. So everyone has their own unique sound. So everyone has their own resonating cavities, and they have different sizes and shapes. So this means that everyone has their own acoustic characteristics. This is what allows you to identify people that you already know without seeing them. So maybe it's talking on the phone. You know that this person is your mom versus your dad because of their acoustic characteristics. And let's see. You can also alter the way that you use your resonating cavities, and it's based on maybe what you're physically doing and also the emotional state that you're in. So if your emotional state is to be tense, or if you're anxious, then your vocal folds are typically in a tensed state as well. And this results in a sound that we have associated with a person being tense and anxious. And the same is true with other things. So if you feel relaxed or if you feel confident, then your vocal folds are also in a relaxed state. And we've associated that sound to be with the emotional state of being relaxed and confident. Sometimes, though, what the words we say are different than the sound and the vocal quality that we have. So if you can think back, for an example, think back to a time when you were young and maybe you were in front of, you're doing something that was irritating your mom, and maybe you were in church or in front of in front of the public, and your mom didn't want to sound harsh, but she also really wanted you to stop doing what you were doing. So maybe she would say, like, not now, but the sound, you knew she meant business because of the way she said it and because of the vocal quality and emphasis that she put it, like, not now, or something like that. So that's an example on how what we hear is kind of different from just the words that we use, and what we hear is people changing their resonating cavities to kind of express their emotions and such. So okay, so just to drive home that point, the way that you alter and select the resonating cavities is really important in determining your vocal quality, and it also can help support a loud tone. So there are some ways that you can speak that can increase or decrease the resonance of different cavities. And as we learned just previously, resonance can increase your vocal tone. So these are 4 exercises that deal with nasality in your textbook. At the end of the slides, I'll explain how what I want you to do with them. Okay, so we're going to move on to the topic of nasality. So there are a couple different terms to express if a person has too much nasality or too little nasality. The textbook uses the words excessive and denasal. And so I would like to put in hypernasality and hyponasality. These are probably terms I know I'm more familiar with just because they're more of a medical term. But I just wanted to bring it up to you so that y'all were aware of these terms because you'll come in contact with them. They're probably more of a medical term, but there you go. So when we're talking about hypernasality or having too much and it's excessive, there are 2 main hypernasality qualities. So types. One type is when all sounds have this overly nasal quality. The other type is when nasal sounds really only occur during words that have the different sounds like n, and l. That's m, n, and l. So the reason why this happens is you have a failure or inability to close the soft palate to seal off that pharyngeal port. So the soft palate, when you look in your mouth, you see that thing that hangs, that tissue that hangs in the back of your mouth, and that is called the uvula, and the uvula is attached to the soft palate. So that's the area of where the soft palate is, and the pharyngeal port is like a hole, and it connects your oral cavity to your nasal cavity. So think about those funny times when you see people laugh and they have milk, they're drinking milk and milk comes out their nose or other things. What's happening is it's traveling up, right? So the liquid is in your oral cavity and it goes through that pharyngeal port, that hole, and it goes up from the oral cavity into the nasal cavity, and then of course it comes out your nostrils. So that's the hole that we're talking about. So the problem with too much nasality, hypernasality, is you're unable to use your soft palate to fully close off that pharyngeal port, that hole. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and show you. You won't be able to see the video. I'll post a link to that. But I'm going to go ahead and show you what it sounds like. So this is just famous female singers, and it will sound very nasal. So. You for mercy, just why won't you release me? I said I'm begging you for mercy. You got me begging up, you got me begging up. This is Gwen Stefani. Ellie Goulding, and this is a lot of sound that's coming out of their nasal cavities. And then of course Britney Spears. And leaving too soon. How can I tell if you mean what you say? You say it so loud, but you sound far
disappear.
Okay, so that's a really good example of nasality, hypernasality, and this is just overall on everything. I'm going to play another sound, and this is of a little girl. She has some difficulties. It's a velocardiofacial deletion syndrome. So she has a lot of hypernasality, and she also has nasalized consonants. So if you listen, sounds that she's supposed to say, like C's or T's, are going to sound more like N's or M's. So this is more of an example for the type of, it was the second type of nasality on words. But she does also have overall nasal quality, so I'll play this for you.
Go get the wagon.
Go get the wagon.
Say, I see the sun in the sky.
I need a nun in the sky.
She went shopping.
You went shopping.
I ride a choo-choo train.
I ride a choo-choo train.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so next, let me pull up. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about denasal. So that's hyponasality, or too little of a nasal sound. And this is when no sounds resonate in your nasal cavity. And the problem for this is opposite. It's that the soft palate completely seals off the pharyngeal port. So the video I have, I wish it would show video on this. Again, I'll post a link. But the video is really good. There's an interesting phenomenon where people who are deaf actually have like a very denasaled sound, very hyponasality. And there's not really a physical reason why that can really like say like, oh, well, you know, like their oral mechanism, that there's something that there's something wrong with it. Okay, so what I mean, sorry, is everything physically works. The muscles work to raise and lower the soft palate, to open and close the oral pharyngeal port. However, it's something that I guess we learn as children because we can hear the difference, that we learn to open and close. But since they're deaf, they are unable to hear it, and so it's difficult for them to modify their tone. So it's just really interesting. I'm going to try to skip ahead in the video to where she's stopping to explain. Let me explain it first. So she is completely deaf and she signs, and her dad is hearing and speaking, and he also signs, and he's going to listen to words that she says without signing them, and he's going to guess what words she's saying. All right, let's see if we can start here. So she's saying that there's 10 words that she's going to do, but we'll just listen to a couple
say
of them.
Only. Ashley. Thank you. Bathroom. That's an important one.
She's saying she uses that a lot. And she says all the words that she's saying, she uses them a lot every day for hearing people.
How much? Water, no ice. Orange juice. She's not been using that one lately. Orange juice.
So you can see how difficult it is to understand someone when you are really hearing them with that, when they speak with denasality. It can be very difficult to understand. And there you go. Yeah. Okay. Did I move on? Okay, here we go. So there are a couple other vocal qualities I want to highlight. So they're tense, strident, metallic, and hoarse qualities. So the first three, tense, strident, and metallic, are high-pitched, and they're often known as hard-hitting qualities. And what we know as hoarseness is a combination of breathiness and harshness, and that results in a voice that sounds very rough. And people often have this whenever they feel a little sick. Maybe they have a cold. So it's very familiar with that. Let's see. So stridency, or if you have a strident voice, that's when it's a combination of a very tense quality and a very high pitch quality. So we often connect this with people who may sound like they always have like a terrible catastrophic event that's happened. So they kind of sound like people who are very sad a lot, and they're frequently they'll have a voice quality, it sounds like that they're petulant and complaining. So anyways, let's continue. When we have excess tension, so these are like very tense, very strident, and very metallic voices, and hoarse qualities all have excess tension to be produced. So it can be caused by a couple things. So one is inadequate breath support. If that's the case, then you can work on abdominal breathing on exercises found on page 280. And if it's something caused other than difficult, insufficient breath support, some relaxation exercises can help physically relax the laryngeal area. And so that can also be found on page 291 to 293. So there you go. Vocal fry. This one's very interesting. Oh, let me go back and show. Again, I really wish I could show the audio for this, but it's just sound. I'll post the links in there if you're interested. We're not going to listen to this whole thing, but to kind of give you an example of what that tense sound will look like, there's some actors. This is a watchmojo.com video, and the title is Top 10 Actors with Annoying Voices. And we're going to listen to one of these.
From all the other wives. Although our first entry is mostly known today for her recurring Family Guy role and her World Series of Poker stardom, any 90s kid will immediately recognize her voice. Having gained public attention in 1994 with an Oscar nod for Bullets Over Broadway.
In some way, you're trying to relive it, and in the process of reliving it, correct it. As if that were possible.
Tilly began a successful streak of playing sultry and dangerous vixens.
Thank you.
This isn't Liar
I'm
Liar.
so grateful I have an attorney I can trust.
Her unique, raspy baby doll voice and femme fatale look came in handy in such films as Bound, Liar Liar, and many Child's Play sequels.
Promises, promises.
Whether in live action or animation, this woman's voice sticks out like a sore thumb.
Your hair was shorter then.
I'm thinking about getting it cut.
Number 8, Megan Mullally.
So that's just an example of how a tense voice may sound strident or tense. It's not more of a metallic tone. That was a little difficult to find an example of, but a metallic sounds metallic-y, more tinny, more robotic. So let's see. Those were good examples of that. So let's talk now about vocal fry. I didn't know this. The book said that it was named that because it supposedly sounds like bacon frying. That's kind of interesting. I'm vegetarian and I grew up that way, so I don't know what bacon frying sounds like, so someone will have to tell me if it really does sound like that or not. So what it really sounds like is your voice gets rough and it has this kind of like bubbly quality. And then it really occurs a lot. Okay, so most often it occurs at the end of sentences or like the end of ideas. So the pitch lowers very significantly and your voice weakens. So I will show a video of this. It was kind of interesting when I was looking for different videos to show. There was a huge tendency where it was thought mostly to be a female, to be an effect of a female's vocal quality. But, men and women, the only really difference between their vocal folds and their vocal cords and such is the size of them. And so quality isn't really affected. Men have just as likely as instance to have vocal fry as women. I think, again, with emotion, it's mostly related to women who, I guess we would think about it stereotypically to be women who are trying to play a role of a victim, maybe who are victimized, maybe people who are not as sure of themselves, not as confident. So there's just some really interesting points that people made about whether or not women should have it in the workplace or not, and other people were saying, well, it's not just women, it's men too. So anyways, kind of an interesting little back loop there if you guys want to get into it. I can send you some links, but we are going to just listen to a vocal fry. So, ooh, I had some right there.
Let's call it vocal fry.
We should do a remake of Charlie's Angels.
That throaty, crackly voice used by some of today's biggest pop culture stars
You have to dress so you can make a quick getaway.
can, according to some studies, cause cracks in the career paths of young women by making them sound less competent.
So it's pitch,
The debate about vocal fry has been simmering for years.
and then it's also the affectation, which is the fry and up talking.
But it reached a boiling point when the prominent feminist author Naomi Wolf wrote about it in The Guardian, urging young women to abandon it in the workplace. Wolf clarified her point of view earlier this week on CBC Radio's The Current.
I'm not criticizing young women. I'm saying our generation has failed in not providing adequate mentoring and support for these young women that they feel they need to use their voices to kind of camouflage their strength.
Wolf's article triggered an uproar among bloggers and commentators. They say scrutiny of women's speaking patterns is just the latest frontier in the endless barrage of judgment faced by women.
I think that it's ludicrous to discount what a woman says and take her any less seriously because of a speech peccadillo that affects everyone.
What many of Wolf's opponents are particularly upset about is the double standard. Men, they say, are affected by vocal fry as well, so why not tell them to drop it to sound more professional? Still, Sklar is hopeful something good could come of this debate.
And then we get to the point where we say, okay, we recognize that there are certain elements that are useful to consider for presentation, for operating within the business world, all of that. But we just want to see those same criteria applied to men.
Until then, vocal fry debate is on the front burner, shaping how women's voices are perceived in the workplace and beyond. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, so that was kind of interesting. I hope you guys also thought it to be interesting. Let's get the screen pulled back up. Okay, so we have some discussion questions. I'll let you look at that and pause the video here while you're writing them. and let's discuss homework. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to pick one exercise for you to focus on from the nasality section. So there are 4 options, exercises 14, 15, 16, or 17, and they can be found on pages 295 to 298. So I want you, again, to just do a video of yourself doing one of these exercises, and I want you to upload it to YouTube. And in your discussion post, provide the YouTube link in there so that we can look at it. And then I want you to also pick one exercise to do on vocal fry sections. This can be found on exercises 18, 19, 20, 21, or 22, and on pages 299 to 302. So just pick one exercise from nasality, one exercise from vocal fry. Just do the video of yourself doing it, upload it to YouTube, and then of course post your YouTube link in your discussion post. Also answer the discussion post questions and respond to your peers. And this homework is due on Sunday, on April 19th at 11:59 p.m. As always, feel free to reach out to Dr. Davis and I if you have any questions or concerns, or if you just want to talk. And if you have any difficulties or uploading or anything, again, we're here for you. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this lecture, and here are your discussion questions. And again, yeah, it was nice talking with you. If you guys want to reach out, we are here. Okay, take good care. Bye-bye.